They are intended to help save abandoned babies under the Safe Haven law, but 2 state agencies question their safety and effectiveness.
2 baby boxes were just installed in Indiana, 1 in Allen County. When safety concerns were raised, though, 15 Finds Out investigator Alyssa Ivinson went looking for answers.
Well, in Indiana, someone can give up an unwanted, unharmed baby up to 30 days old at a hospital, police station, or fire station without fear of prosecution. That's the Safe Haven law. In fact, that's happened just a few days ago on Sunday when someone left a baby in a hospital parking lot. Before this past weekend, 31 babies have been surrendered since the law started 15 years ago. Now, 2 Indiana fire stations have what's called baby boxes, a place someone could leave the child without having to see or talk to an emergency responder. But whether or not that's a good idea depends on who you ask.
It's a heavy-duty plastic material.
Embedded in the side wall of the Woodburn Fire Station sits a baby box, the first of its kind in the country.
I was abandoned and now I'm saving abandoned babies. It's a good feeling.
Monica Kelsey started Safe Haven baby boxes 2.5 years ago. While someone can give up a newborn at a fire or police station or hospital under the Safe Haven law, she says some women are deterred by meeting emergency responders face to face, like in Delphus, Ohio, 45 days ago, when a baby girl was left in a cardboard box outside a fire station.
This mother went as far as she could. She went to the fire station, but she couldn't do the face-to-face interaction that the law required. That's why these boxes are so important. That little girl stayed outside for an hour.
Kelsey says as soon as the baby box is opened on the outside, a call goes to 911. Once the child's placed inside, a second alarm is triggered. Kelsey says an emergency responder would be at the baby's side in 2 to 4 minutes. She estimates they've done around 60 trial runs in the Woodburn and Michigan City locations.
0 fails because we've tested this over and over. This isn't something we took lightly.
While responders test them with training, there are not any official protocols to regulate baby boxes. In a statement to 15 Finds Out, the heads of the state health and child services departments say they don't endorse the baby boxes and, quote, there is no evidence to suggest baby boxes are a safe or prudent way to surrender a child.
We wanted the Department of Health to do safety standards, protocols, and procedures, and again, they failed to do that.
Last year, House Enrolled Act 1016 called for the Health Department and the Commission on Improving the Status of Children to provide recommendations for the installation and use of baby boxes.
Their recommendation is to not put money into the boxes and put money into the Safe Haven law.
They were supposed to study the existing Safe Haven law, not the boxes. Didn't say anything about them studying boxes.
But their recommendation was to not do the baby boxes. That was their policy and procedure, was we're not supporting baby boxes.
That's not what the legislation asked them to do. They knew they were coming. They knew they were coming. And they did not do their job.
Representative Casey Cox from Fort Wayne authored the bill, and in a letter exchange with State Health Commissioner Dr. Jerome Adams, Adams said there is no precedent for safety standards in the U.S. or abroad, and any device designed to house an abandoned baby should undergo certification and testing to standards set by the FDA.
With the help of our attorneys, we did the standards, protocols, policies, and procedures for the use of the baby boxes because the health department failed us.
Can you give us a copy of the safety procedures and protocols that you guys have come up with?
I can ask our attorney if that's something that we can do.
3 different companies build the parts for the baby boxes.
They test it. They give their final okay before we install it.
Is there an independent company that does the safety testing, though, separate from the manufacturer?
We actually just contacted a company to safety certify our boxes, and that's in the works right now. So when that becomes available, we'll release that information.
But when 15 Finds Out asked for more details on that certification.
So when did your independent safety start?
We'll release the information when it becomes available.
Why won't you answer that question?
We'll release it when it becomes available.
Will it have like a government certification like most electronic products do?
We'll release that information when it becomes available.
You understand how that seems kind of weird that you won't even answer when safety testing started?
We started safety testing these boxes 15 months ago. This isn't anything new for us. Like I said before, we didn't just build these in the back shop of our home. You know, this has been 15 months in the making with 3 companies out of the Fort Wayne area building these. We'll release that information when it becomes available.
In the meantime, Kelsey says the boxes are safe and they're supposed to be a last resort.
We want them to call our hotline before they get to this point. We want to help them. You know, it's not about putting boxes in buildings. It's literally walking alongside these women, like my birth mother, who felt like she had no choice.
The hotline, she says, is working. More than 700 calls since August.
We have assisted hundreds of women with crisis pregnancy centers in their area. We've assisted with 3 safe surrenders, you know, which were a last resort. We're doing great things.
Kelsey says 2 more baby boxes will be installed in Indiana in the next month or so, and 3 more could be going in after that. She wouldn't give specifics on where those locations are just yet. Donations are paying for all these boxes. No state money is being used. And by the way, we still have not received the state safety policies and procedures from Safe Haven Baby Boxes. For 15 Finds Out, I'm Alyssa Ivinson.
While the debate over whether or not baby boxes should be a way for someone to surrender an infant, an unwanted one, continues, we're taking a closer look at one of the issues at the center of the whole thing.
Do those boxes fall under the Safe Haven law? 15 Finds Out investigator Alyssa Ivinson sat down with 2 legal experts and discovered that question has more than one answer. She continues her investigation tonight. Alyssa?
Well, as we've been covering the controversy surrounding baby boxes, we told you about the 2 interpretations of the Safe Haven law. The state says someone who uses a baby box is not protected by the law, but the baby box's attorney says the opposite. So we've got 1 law, 2 opinions. Which one is right? Which would win in court? Well, we went to an Indiana Tech law professor and a former prosecutor to find out. We discovered it might take a change in the law to have an answer.
The gist of this problem is that it's a multifaceted public policy issue.
That is the nature of practicing law, that, you know, how a statute is interpreted.
Indiana's Safe Haven law, code that's now at the center of the controversy surrounding baby boxes. It allows someone to give up an infant less than 30 days old and not be prosecuted for abandonment. In a recent letter exchange, 15 Finds Out reported the director of the Department of Child Services wrote baby boxes are in conflict with the Safe Haven law, saying it requires a person to surrender the infant to an actual person, defined as an emergency medical services provider, and that if someone used a baby box, it could trigger a DCS investigation. But Safe Haven Baby Box's attorney argues the law does not require a person-to-person handoff. What does the law itself say? It uses phrases like emergency medical services provider taking custody of a child and any person who leaves a child with an emergency medical services provider.
And so the question really hinges on what does it mean to give custody to a provider?
Yvonne Lindgren is an assistant professor at Indiana Tech Law School.
It's not clear from the language of the statute.
Former prosecutor Michael Loomis agrees.
When you start wading into it, you see both sides of the issue.
15 Finds Out asked Loomis and Lindgren to examine the Safe Haven law.
Right now, there's 1 Indiana code, 2 opinions on that code.
Right.
And do you think both could be argued with the way the law is written right now?
I do. I think both could be argued persuasively the way the law is written. What does it mean to relinquish custody? Does it have to be a personal face-to-face handoff? That is how the DCS is interpreting the law. As a law professor, I will say that the fact that you put the baby into the box and then it closes and it locks, to me that is a pretty solid transfer of custody.
Whether a baby box can be considered an emergency medical services provider under the Safe Haven law. The law doesn't specifically address that issue, and it needs to be resolved so that there is a clear understanding.
If a case were to go to court with the way the law is now, arguments could turn to the intent of the law.
I think a person could be charged and perhaps even prosecuted. I think it's doubtful whether they could be convicted for the reason that the neglect statute uses the words knowingly or intentionally. That requires specific intent. When a person is doing just the opposite, trying to relinquish that baby to society to get assistance for that baby, I don't think that constitutes neglect.
If you were still in a prosecuting role, Would you pursue charges, or do you think that charges would be pursued if baby boxes were used as the statute is written today?
As the statute is written today, I would not prosecute a person for neglect of a dependent for surrendering a baby to a baby box. I just don't see the evidence of specific intent, knowingly or intentionally, placing that child in danger, and that's what the neglect statute is all about.
The Safe Haven law has been on the books since 2000, and Loomis and Lindgren say it now falls to lawmakers to clarify it.
There is a legitimate gray area in the law. I don't think that the law is written specifically enough to require an in-person handoff, even though that is how the DCS argues it should be interpreted. I think the law does need to be redrafted to be more specific.
State Senator Travis Holdman has told me he plans to bring baby boxes up for discussion in the next legislative session, saying there are gaps in the law. Now, there are 2 baby boxes in Indiana right now, 1 in Woodburn. 2 more are expected to be installed in central Indiana soon. In Studio 15, Alyssa Ivinson, News Channel 15.
They're intended to be an option for desperate mothers to give up their babies under the Indiana Safe Haven law.
Now the Department of Child Services is calling for baby boxes to be shut down. 15 Finds Out investigator Alyssa Ivinson has been following this story for weeks and just spoke with the attorney for the baby boxes today. She joins us now with this 15 Finds Out follow-up.
Well, just 2 days after our investigation aired last month, Safe Haven Baby Boxes met with several state officials. Well, 15 Finds Out obtained letters just sent between those 2 groups. The Department of Child Services is asking for the program to end, but Safe Haven Baby Boxes says they have no intention of stopping.
A battle over baby boxes playing out on paper. In a letter sent last Friday, the Department of Child Services director says baby boxes are not an authorized way to protect abandoned infants under current Indiana law.
There is no federal or state law that prevents them from opening and operating successfully.
Indiana's Safe Haven law says an emergency medical services provider will take custody of a child up to 30 days old. Child Services says that means the baby has to be physically given to an emergency responder, and if it's placed in a baby box, it would open an abandonment investigation. But Baby Box's attorney, Jim Bopp, says the emergency personnel taking custody of a child from the box is in line with the law.
But regardless of whether it does or it doesn't, this is an option to save a baby. And whether or not the woman is charged or not, the baby is saved versus having the baby, thrown in the dumpster or abandoned in a woods.
The DCS letter calls for baby boxes to be discontinued, no additional ones to be installed, and have a government agency review them.
There's no legal authority to shut down the baby box. They recommended we shut them down, but we're not going to do that.
Last month, when 15 Finds Out pressed for how independent safety testing was being done on the boxes, we were met with one answer.
We'll release it when it becomes available.
We asked again today, and we're told the lab is not finished yet.
Is that with the FDA or the Consumer Product Safety Commission, a government agency?
No, there's no government agencies involved because there's no federal or state law that regulates baby boxes.
Now, I also just talked with State Senator Travis Holdman. He told me he's in favor of the baby boxes, but says there needs to be more discussion and guidelines to ensure their safety. When we did our first investigation last month, the baby boxes creator said she created her own safety guidelines when the legislature didn't, and she would check with her attorney about giving those to us. Well, we asked for them again today, and her attorney told us she denied our request. Now, you can see much more on this story, including all of the letters and the legislation involved, all right now on WANE.com. Alyssa Ivinson, News Channel 15.